Hi, my name's Billy, I read books and welcome to my Maybe Read video for May 2023. This isn't a to be read because I am a massive mood reader and my mood fluctuates quite a lot in terms of the books that I read. The way my mind works is I'm reading a book and in the back of my mind, books bubble up to the surface and sink back down. Others are up here at the surface at the forefront of my mind and then sink back down, and something else from nowhere, from the depths, comes back up. And it's those books that I've put on this list that are there up in the forefront of my mind at this moment in time. I'm going to talk to you about 9 books that are on my MBR for this month. But there's only one that is definitely going to get read, and that's because I'm going to start it this morning. And that's The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington, however you pronounce his name. I think I'm just going to call him James. This is the first book in the Lycaeus trilogy. It was doing the rounds a good number of years ago on YouTube. Lots of people seem to have read it. There's mixed opinions on it, but I can remember from when it first came across my radar, the selling point of it was fans of The Wheel of Time will love this series. And I am a fan of The Wheel of Time. I do not know much about it. I deliberately do not know much about the books I read before I go into them. I like to go into them blind and I like to be surprised. So this is a decent sized book. I generally read 3 to 4 books a month, so depending on how this goes will affect my mood in terms of what else I read. Because depending on how that book goes and depending how quick that goes, bearing in mind that is starting a new trilogy, this has been on my mind for quite a bit. Iron Gold by Pierce Brown. This is the first book in the second part of the Red Rising saga. Book 2 is Dark Age, which I have. I don't think you can see it, but it's on my shelf up there anyway. Third book, Lightbringer, is due to come out soon, and I think the fourth book will be out not too long after that. So there's quite a few people reading this at the minute. I know Mike from Mike's Book Reviews is doing a reread, and he's getting up to date with the series, ready for Lightbringer coming out. So this has been on my mind for a while. So depending on how book 1 in Lycaeus trilogy goes, will depend on how much of if I want to get to this, because this is a decent sized book as well. Will I want to pick this up, another big book, first book in a series, or will I want something different? And this is where my mood reading instincts come in, because that's starting 2 new series. But what about series I've got ongoing? Well, I did a video about series I've recently read, series I've got ongoing, which I will link down below. And one of those was The Culture by Ian M. Banks. And I've only read one book in that. I read Use of Weapons, and that's going back maybe a year ago, maybe not that long ago, but it feels like a long time ago. And I've been in a quandary as to where to go next. And a couple of people have commented on my videos and said The Player of Games is a good place to go. And I've mentioned Consider Fleabag, which is technically book 1 in the series, but you don't have to read them in order. Some people have said Consider Fleabag is good, others have said The Player of Games is good, but I'm thinking of going for Consider Fleabag. If I am in the mood for picking up this series again and not starting something brand new, like another brand new series, then I think this is the way I'm going to go. Again, I do not know much about it, I'm feeling a need to progress this series. But what if I've got the mood for not continuing a series or starting a new series? What if it's something, a standalone, I want to read? Well, I've got a couple of options for that. And the first one would be Recursion by Blake Crouch. Now, I read Dark Matter by Blake Crouch probably about a year ago, maybe more. And that was good fun. It was a science fiction story. It was fast paced. It didn't let up. It was non-stop, and it was really enjoyable. And from everything I've heard, that's pretty much how most of his books go. And Recursion is one of those. I haven't heard any bad things about it, and I think if I'm in the mood after going through a big epic fantasy book, and I just want a standalone, then this might scratch that itch. But if I want a standalone fantasy book, what could I go for there? Well, I recently read book 1 in The Wandering Inn by Pirate Harbour, where the main character for the start of the book is trying to get used to running an inn, basically. It's a very cosy story. And as I was reading that, I was thinking, this sounds like Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. I don't know why I thought that, because I've not read Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. So why don't I? If I enjoy reading a book about someone running an inn, then this, my understanding is, Legends and Lattes, is about a couple of retired mercenaries, one of whom is an orc, and it's a low stakes, cozy fantasy about running a coffee shop or something like that. Well, why don't I give that a go? Everyone seems to have read this recently, so why don't I jump on that bandwagon and give it a go? I went to the cinema not too long ago, which is a rare occurrence for me, with my wife, and I thought, you know what, I've not been to the cinema for ages. We went watching a film called Missing. It was actually quite good. Go and watch it if you've not done. I was thinking I should do this again more often. And it got me thinking about book adaptations, about books that are going to be turned into films, books I've read, books that I want to read. And it's my understanding that Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton is going to be turned into a film. And I wouldn't mind going watching it after having read the book. Now, my understanding was that this was a standalone, but I think there might be a sequel, but I don't know. Anyway, if I'm in the mood for wanting to get ahead of the game, being up to date, heaven forbid, imagine feeling like you're up to date when you're reading the books that you've got on your TBR, then I can read this book, which I think is along the lines of, it's set in the future. There's this guy called Mickey, and I think he's a bit of a clone. So he goes out and does these dangerous tasks, and if he was to die or get severely injured, well, Mickey 2 then comes out to play. Mickey 2 goes and does stuff, and if he gets killed, well, Mickey 3 comes out. And I think this is the story of Mickey number 7. So that might be completely wrong with that. I don't know. Maybe I just dreamt that last night. But that's what I think the story is going to be about. So yeah, I might want to read that and be ahead of the game. But what if I want to jump back into a world that I've already been reading, that I've enjoyed, but I don't want to be committing to starting off on another 3 or 4 book series? Well, what about a collection of short stories? I'm not a big fan of short stories, but I am a big fan of Joe Abercrombie. I've read his initial First Law trilogy. I've recently finished up the standalone books, the standalone trilogy, if that's what you want to call it, which would leave me the Age of Madness trilogy to go to next. But then I remembered I have Sharp Ends, which is a collection of short stories set in the First Law world. What a great way to jump back into this world without too much of a big commitment. I could even pick at this throughout the month if I wanted to, one short story and then jump into the next book, different book I want to go to. So Sharp Ends by Joe Abercrombie is an option for this month. But what if there's a couple of other things that are just lurking in the back of my mind? Which there are. There's always lots of things lurking in the back of my mind. Not all of them are book related either. But there's a couple of authors that, one of whom I've read books by and I really like, and I don't want to just burn through all this stuff. And then there's another author who I own a lot of books on digital, on my Kindle, and I have not read one of them yet. What if I want to go back to them or go to them? Well, the author I've read books by, who I really like, is Michael R. Fletcher. These are grimdark books. I read his Manifest Delusions series last year, really liked it. So why don't I read Blackstone Heart? This is a completed series. I've got the first 2 books. I don't think these books are particularly long, but I like Michael Fletcher's writing, and I'd love to jump back to read some more of his books. Now, the author who I own a lot of books by, but haven't read any of, is Adrian Tchaikovsky. I think I must have 8 of his books on my Kindle. And the problem I've got is I never know where to start. So, because I'm a massive mood reader, I saw someone talk about Guns of the Dawn a couple of days ago. And I thought, you know what, I own that. That's a standalone. I've seen a few other people talk about it on booktube, and lots of people really, really like it. So if I'm going to jump into Adrian Tchaikovsky's work, and the problem with this is he's got a lot of books out there. If I do that, I'm probably not going to be able to stop. But I think this will be a good place to start. So those are the books on my mind this month that I'm hoping to possibly get to. Let me know if you've read any of those. Let me know what you're planning on reading this month, and I'll see you again in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.